Hello. So I think the time has come for me to tell my story. Most likely going to be in parts because it's multi-layered and cyclical, and as I've been trying to wrap my own head around it because it's been a whirlwind the last couple of years, and it's been for the most part, well, yeah, 99.9% of it has been absolutely fantastic and fun and miraculous, is to say the least. It's been really, really cool. And but what brought me to it was hell on earth. But I'm finally at a point now where I can talk about it without getting emotional. So that's why I feel like, okay, I think I'm ready, because it's just I'm gonna try to just explain it as more matter of fact, and which is a good indication of healing. So I want to move on to the next chapter in my life. Today's the 9th of January, 2022, and this all kind of began in 2018. But I'm gonna try to shorten it and make it as general as possible, just to kind of bring people up to speed, because it'll make sense as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so anyway, I'll first start with what my intention is. My intention moving forward is to help people who are in my position or something close to it, or and also help people understand, who are maybe close to me, understand what it is exactly that I went through, so that they can get a better grasp of why I behave the way I do, and why my interests are what they are, and why certain boundaries have been created, and just why my overall personality has kind of changed. And there's a lot to it. And so in having a social conversation, there's not enough time or enough attention span to really to really describe everything. It's intense, but it's been magical and wonderful. And now I'm learning more about transformation, so that I can help other people, because that's essentially what happened. And at first I thought it was just going to be a personal growth transformation, which was, obviously, it was obvious to me it needed to happen. And so what started out as a personal growth, mission or journey or whatever, chapter, it turned into something much more profound and much more meaningful and life-changing for me. And that's due to a spiritual awakening that happened. And in some ways it seemed spontaneous, and in other ways, because of all the revelations I had during it, it made me realize that it's happened before. It's just that I was denying it. And that's why I really want to help others, because is identifying, what is a spiritual awakening, and at least to me, from my experience, that's why it's important to tell my story. Because before, I just knew I needed a lifestyle change, but I was too afraid. There was a lot of fear attached to making changes, and there's a lot that I know now for sure, when before there was so much confusion. And so I'm just going to tell my story in the most linear way I can, in some sort of order, some sort of timeline, to help myself, because I'm doing this for myself as much as I am for other people to understand. I'm going to try to explain it this way, and so that way it can really help me move forward with the work I want to do. I'm feeling this pull to help people navigate through their own transformations, whether it be for personal growth or for if they're spiritually curious. And I need to really come to terms with the verbiage, because before, a little bit of background, I was all growing up, I always considered myself more spiritual than religious. I never considered myself religious at all. My household was, but I wasn't. And there's nothing against religion. I just felt that I had this personal connection to some other higher power, which everyone has access to, right? But since there wasn't enough education or knowledge around it, it was always just mystical, like what was that and what was this and why am I interested in this so much? And so now at 38 years old, everything makes sense, And so that's why I want to kind of be that bridge, for people who are, working through their day-to-day lives, but also have an interest in like, well, what's, more philosophically, like what's the deeper meaning of life? What's my purpose in life? Why, if someone's feeling stuck or vulnerable or confused or fearful. And now it's like there's no better time than ever to induce a transformation and to really draw that line in the sand. Like I'm done with this. Whatever it is you're going through in your life, whether it's a job or relationship or a relationship to alcohol or substances, no matter what it is. If it's coming up again and again and again, it's probably something that needs to be addressed. And going through your own personal transformation and a mission or a journey of self-discovery is extremely important, and it's called for everybody, no matter what your background or religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs are. It's important for everybody to go through some sort of transformation, I think multiple times in your life, because I've been through several myself, and now this one was the big one where it's like those previous transformations were I abandoned them too early. In hindsight, I did. I thought, okay, that's done, and then I just went about my life and wasn't continuing the application of it. And so it's like, no wonder this happened or no wonder that happened. And so we have to go through our own journey because everyone has their own journey, and so it's special, it's unique to each of us, because it's a combination of our life experiences, our environment, our belief systems, our paradigm that we're in, and how we were brought up, our traumas, we all have a unique past and unique experiences and a unique past. And so now, I've learned so much. I can't even. So I'm just going to tell, as much as I can and keep it as general as possible, because eventually I will write a book. There's a lot of detail and a lot of turmoil and a lot of but I don't want to go there. I want to keep this as light as possible. And my intention is to help others eventually. So I feel like, one of my blocks right now is like, I want to help people, but then the thing is I don't want them to think I'm coming from a place of like, because I never thought of myself to be ever. I never saw myself as being any kind of mentor or motivational speaker or influencer or teacher. Like I never saw myself that way at all. I was just always like, I'm a lone wolf. I'm doing my own thing. And, I'm an introvert, so I this is like, it's been taking me a couple years of exercising on camera to even get used to seeing my own face on camera. So it's I've gone through many different areas where I've grown, so I wanted to tell a story because I don't want people to think like, I want to be a teacher, I'm going to teach you about this. It's like, no, it's not coming from a place of ego. It's not coming from a place of even leadership. I see this more of as like a peer. Like I just want to, hey, like as a sister, as an aunt, as a, someone who just really genuinely cares about people and their own personal evolution and their own conscious expansion. And there's a lot of questions when it comes to embarking on a journey of your own. And being in my 30s, I'm seeing a lot of other peers going through something similar, and this is when we're we reach these points, these milestones in our life, in our teenage years and then early adult years, and then again in our 30s, and then again in maybe like our 50s and 60s. It's like you kind of pause to reevaluate where you are in life, And so for me, since I don't have children, I don't have a husband, I don't have certain things that people my age have. It was a time of reflection, like, well, where am I, and so that's why this was so important to me. This took up a lot of space and time and energy, and it meant so much to me. And so anyway, I want to move forward into 2022 as being more of a mentor or just someone to kind of assist others navigate through it, because it can be hell on earth. It could feel like this is the end. It could feel like this is but it's all for a reason. It's all for a reason, and it's beautiful depending on your perspective and depending on how you process it. And so I know that people my age, anywhere around it, might be going through something similar. So of course this doesn't apply to someone who just has their shit together in every single aspect of their life. It's for people who might be confused, depressed, questioning behavioral patterns, or struggling with possible addictions, or like maybe a gray area alcoholic, like, am I an alcoholic? I don't know, questioning it, like, am I? Or am I depressed? Or am I this? Or am I having a midlife crisis? Like, what is this, And so yeah, I'll tell my story, and then from there, I'll talk about it more on a micro level, like this layer, that layer, that layer, that layer, and then whatever resonates, someone can be like, oh my God, that totally applies to me. What did you do? So I'll get there. Like for now, I'm not even like I don't even know how many hundreds of pages written down, but right now it's important to speak it rather than write it in a book, because I feel like there might be people out there that this can apply to and really help. So I have to have a starting off point, a foundation, and that's my story. So it all started, not all of it, but this last profound awakening started January, 2 years ago, almost exactly, January of 2020. And so something happened. I'll keep this general. I was attacked, and I was already kind of in a low point in my life, and I was already kind of like that first layer of depression. Like confused, and like my self-worth wasn't completely intact, and I was doing everything on paper correctly, but I just felt like something was missing, and there was just this darkness, this whatever. And so anyway, my person and I had kind of just started to rekindle something, and so he was there, and we were in a public place, and I was attacked, and what's crazy is I don't remember any of it. I had to find out the next morning when he told me, like, yeah, you were attacked, and it was, of course, like a shock and terrifying, and police involved, hospital involved, yada yada yada. It was not cool at all. And so that was kind of a starting off point, and I just want to start there so that everything else will kind of make sense. At least I'm still to this day trying to make sense of it, but that's just there as a marker. That happened the first week of January, and so the first thing I did, not the first thing I did was go to the hospital, but after, the first thing, as far as, okay, I need to make sure that I keep my sanity about this, that I'm doing the right thing, that I take care of my health, my mental health, my emotional health, my well-being, and so I already had established a relationship, and she is a mentor of mine, and she's also my hypnotherapist. I hit her up to make sure that I don't live in that energy of something that, is trauma, and so it was really important to me. At least I was self-aware enough, or aware enough, to know to do that. And so that was my intention, is to not live in this victimhood mentality, like, poor me, and this happened to me. I knew that I didn't want that, and I didn't want to move forward in my life with any kind of resentment or fear, that's definitely, I've never looked at myself as someone who's weak. And even though I was, in hindsight, I was very weak when that happened to me. And so, like emotionally, and mentally. And so I sought her advice, and I went to hypnotherapy, and I wanted to make sure on a subconscious level that I wasn't allowing this to debilitate me in any kind of way. And so speaking with her helped. And I remember saying in that session, saying that I want to, I didn't use the word alchemize, but I said I want to use this as like a springboard into something else, I don't care what it is, but I want to get as far away from that dark feeling as possible, and make sure that I, catapult into something else, and one of the other things we wanted to, of course, address is that I didn't carry around any shame, or guilt. And you could say that till you're blue in the face and get hypnotized as much as you want, but on some level, it's that it takes work, and of course that's something else I'm learning now in hindsight. And so anyway, moving forward, just a few weeks later, I found out that the place I was living in was on the market and I had to find a place to live. So that puts us at, towards the end of February. And so, of course, that was a blow too. So like, oh gosh, what? I really like this place, to a degree. I really liked the room. In hindsight, again, it's like, wow, I'm in a much, much, much better place. But at the time I was like, oh man, like I made a vow that I would never leave this place until I was married or had a place of my own and like had real, a strong foundation of some kind, because it's a beautiful, beautiful condo. And, but the owner, it was part of an estate or trust or whatever. And, the family decided it was time to sell it. And, I understood. It's like, okay, and so, but there was another like, oh, yeah. So I was rocked a bit. And then, a couple weeks after that, not even, maybe a week after that, my person kind of just ghosted me after comforting me during that first of the week or first of the year attack and experience. He just kind of fell off the face of the earth. And so now I felt like my world was kind of closing in, and not kind of, a lot, because we were just starting to rekindle something. And it was just like, what is happening? Like, what did I do? And of course, being the person I am, I start, what's going on? Like frantic, starting to panic. And I have been guilty of self-medicating, and that's what I began to do. And just real quick, had to move a little bit. I was self-medicating and also working at every chance I can get, so I normally would have one bartending job and then I would do hair. At this point, I wasn't doing hair. I was just bartending. So I had three different bartending gigs just to always be doing something, And so when I wasn't working, I was drinking and partying and just anything to fill that void, And so that's where I was at. And then March 17th, we went into lockdown. And so it's just like boom, 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 boom. All of my foundation was just imploding, like my whole foundation was rocked. The carpet, ripped from underneath me. Just no sense of any kind of control or self-worth or anything. Just what is happening. And then of course we were in quarantine. So I had my grumpy 1 and grumpy 2 roommates, both heavy drinkers, both depressed. And then there's me. And so my environment was not of the lightest. And so, the spiral just continued to go down and down and down and down, and to a point where, I was not taking care of myself at all, and, I went from, somewhat depressed to handling it because I still have a foundation to just holding on to whatever I could. And then there was nothing. And the nothingness was just, that void was just indescribable. And I know a lot of people went through that, so people I'm sure can relate to, oh my gosh, because your whole sense of identity is just gone, especially if you're a workaholic like me. And in any of those industries, service industry, it's like that's part of who you are, especially if you love to be a person of service. Like I love connecting with people and I love hearing their stories and sharing stories, and that was my social outlet too, and so all of it was just, and so I'll get into more detail later, but right now I'm just timeline. So that's March 17th, and so that's when just down into, defeat, just who am I, fear. And so at the darkest point, I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't brushing my teeth, wasn't showering, was sleeping maybe 20 hours a day. If I did get up, I would drink as fast as possible. I was doing cocaine several times a week. And I was going through a bit of, I guess at this point, psychosis. I was lashing out at my family, my only support system, like just lashing out, bringing up stuff from childhood. That part didn't make sense to me. Kind of shifting between realities, like just really, really confused and really, really sad, just really sad. And so it got to a point where finally my older sister just kind of called me out, and she's like, "Are you okay? What's going on? You're not yourself." And so I think that's what it took, is someone to call me out and be like, okay, so I'm not just imagining all of this. Like it's apparent that there's something really wrong, really wrong with my state. And so, I'm just like, I'm not hearing from him, and, and they didn't know at this time what had happened. He was the only one that knew. So in that arena of my life, he was my only support system. And then, from my eyes, he abandoned me in the worst time possible, so I was very, sad about that and angry and lashing out at my family, the only people who would listen, but they didn't know that whole side. So, there was secrets and trauma and, all this old gunk was coming up, and I didn't know why. And so, every single aspect of my life as far as security goes, there was none. There was no compassion. There was no, my family, of course, like I do have a very close-knit family, and they do care, and they're very supportive in any way they can, but I was blocking them from supporting me because I didn't want to burden them with my state. I didn't want to burden them with the whole poor me thing. I didn't want them to know, I didn't want them to know because it would break their heart. And so I was taking on all of that burden. I was taking it on, and not that I was trying to be noble. Like I didn't know any better. Like I really didn't know how to even articulate how much my world was crashing down, because there was nothing anyone could do to save me. Nothing. One way I described it to my mom is like, I'm like, it feels like, if like, 'cause she's like, of course, she's a mom. She's like, how can someone make you feel better right now? Like, what can we do? And I'm like, Mom, honestly, like, I'm a extremely handsome man on a horse can ride up to my house right now and offer me $3 billion and a trip to Disneyland, and I would just slam the door in his face. I am numb. I'm depleted. There's nothing in me. There's no will to live. There's nothing that would even give me a chuckle, nothing. And I knew I was pathetic. That was what's what made it worse. It's like I knew how pathetic I was. And it's like, how do you climb out of that? Where do you start? I had nothing to like grasp onto. There was no anchor, so drowning, I had that sense of drowning or just complete despair, just being in a cold, dark place. I didn't have the human touch in weeks. And I remember learning in psychology how important that is to have. And that's something that I know a lot of people went through and are still going through to some degree. So, the isolation was getting to me, and I was aware that was even weird, because I enjoy solitude. But I wasn't in a place of enjoying solitude. I was in a place where I needed comfort, and I was desperate for comfort, desperate. And I didn't even know how to articulate how someone could give it to me. The only thing that would make me feel better is for my person's comfort, because he's the one that knew the whole story. And so, in hindsight, I don't blame him at all for that. I still don't know exactly why, but now because of how much I've learned about myself and how much I've learned about just human behavior in general, I understand and have compassion for him as well. So at the end of the day, there was no. I felt unjustified. I felt like there was no justice on many levels, and I was definitely in a woe is me type of energy, and I wanted to be strong. I didn't want to feel weak. I did not want to feel defeated, and so that's where I came to a point finally after my sister called me out. It's like, okay, I guess I need to surrender. I need to surrender. I need to just say, I'm at a loss. I don't know. And turn to whatever support I can get, whether that be my, my higher self, higher power, and then of course my support system, family, and whatever kind of therapy I can get, because I was seriously considering, like, do I need to go to rehab? I was at that point, but there was this part of me that was like, no, don't do like a home rehab first, and then let that be your last resort. And so that's what I did, and it was bad. It felt like a version of hell, like just torture, torture, and it really messed with the mind a lot too, because, for instance, I would try to think of like anything positive, puppies and unicorns and, anything that was positive, and my brain just would not go there. So for instance, I would picture like a little puppy, and it would morph into something disgusting and scary, and there was some other thing outside myself at play. And so, when you're second guessing your own sanity, and then being aware that you're second guessing your own sanity, you're not crazy. You're not crazy, but there's something profound and something bigger than you that's happening that you just can't control. And so I was desperate to regain control and to feel like in some sort of, I was dying to hear someone say, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Just do XYZ, I was just desperate to hear those words, and so even trying to tell myself that, and so once I surrendered, that is exactly what I felt like I heard in myself. Like, everything is going to be okay. Like, everything is. And the first thing I knew to do was to detox. Detoxing saved my life, like legit saved my life. It saved my life many times, but this time was like, it was life or death. That's what it felt like. And my mentor calls it was like an executive decision. You knew that if you didn't do that, draw that line in the sand, like enough is enough, that I would have eventually died. Like, I would have ended up somewhere really, really, really awful. And so, when you have no will to live, I wouldn't say I was exactly like suicidal, but I did lose my will to live. I lost it. And, I was just desperate for strength. I felt so weak, so defeated, so pathetic, so dirty. I felt so, bleh, and I kept hearing, you're better than this, you're better than this. And I kept getting this image of like myself as a like young girl, like 8 years old, 10 years old, like with their arms crossed going, like shame on you, you let yourself get to this. And so, that was like, it's brutal, it's brutal. And so anyway, I won't get emotional, but, but yeah, that was definitely like what it took, a lot of suffering in order to surrender. And it's like, okay, I don't have all the answers anymore. I don't know what I did, or I don't know what to do. I don't know, what I did karmically speaking to deserve this, but something, because, now I'm ready to own up. I'm ready to own up to it. I'm ready to build strength and gain clarity. And so that's when I started. It was the very end of April 2020. So, that was, gosh, if you think about it, March 17th to April 29th, I think is the day. I was like, this is it. That's still many weeks of living in hell. Idiot. Anyway, no, not idiot. It's just, you try to make sense of it in a social norm type of situation. And that's why now, looking back, now I realize, had I been more spiritually anchored, I would have climbed out so much quicker. Now that, if I knew then what I know now, oh boy. And so that's why I really feel compelled and called to share, what I do know and what I've experienced, so that I can help others that are even remotely close to something like that. And people who are not, they're not going through all that, but just even because there's phases. I brought myself up the spiral. So, from being completely pathetic to content. People who are content, now I'm way up into joy every day, all day, because of that path of enlightenment really brings you there and you live there. I'm always, 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 always optimistic, no matter what. And so now, because of those tools that are in my tool belt, and so, no matter where someone is on that, it's the Abraham Hicks emotional scale. I love using it as a reference, but it shows, we have control over our emotions. And if we really, really, really study why we feel the way we feel, there's always answers to how to maneuver and manipulate your way up in a beautiful, magical way. And life never has to be that hard, as long as we think outside the box and learn to break our own paradigms and unlearn what's not serving us anymore and start to reprogram the way we think and what our belief systems really are, what's working for us and what's not. And so there was a lot of being honest with myself, and a lot of learning to be truly honest with myself so I could break behavioral patterns that weren't serving me anymore. So anyway, that'll be chapter 1 concluded. Suffering into surrender. Okay, bye.